Welcome to another video by Callichthyidae Fish Room. 5 days ago, a new paper got published looking into the Corydoras group, and the genus Corydoras got split into a number of different genera. When the news came out, some went and some went. For example, Corydoras panda is now Hoplisoma panda. From a hobby point of view, if you call your Corydoras panda Corys anyway, you will continue to call them panda Corys, so the scientific name changing should have no effect on you whatsoever. Prior to the paper, there were 9 Corydoras lineages have been recognized by science but also by the hobbyists. So there are 9 distinct groups. If you haven't heard about Corydoras lineages before, Corydoras were put into 9 different groups, and each group obviously had species that are similar to each other. For example, lineage 1 was what we call long-nosed species, which are sort of grow slightly larger and their snout is a little bit more sort of pointed out, whereas your normal Corydoras, we think of them as sort of a little bit more curved with the barbels here. With the long-nosed Corydoras, it's sort of more out there. So that was lineage 1, and it went lineage 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A lot of the well-known Corydoras are, for example, in lineage 9, like Corydoras panda, Corydoras schwartzi, Corydoras trilineatus, and Corydoras julii are all in lineage 9. Did you know that there are over 200 species of Corydoras? And many undescribed Corydoras are identified by the hobbyist with C numbers and CW numbers. In the paper, they looked at morphological, which is physical characteristics of the fish, and also some genetic data. Based on that, some of the old names of Corydoras have been resurrected. So with this revision, lineage 1 Corydoras stay as Corydoras species. So here are some of the long-nosed Corydoras species. So there's no changes to lineage 2. Lineage 2 continues to be Aspidoras species. Let's have a look at a few. Lineage 3 is Scleromystax. Barbatus is one, even though it has been Scleromystax barbatus for a while. People continue to refer to them as Corydoras barbatus, so there would be no change to those of you who still call them Corydoras barbatus. But here is some Scleromystax to look at. Lineage 4 and 5 are now Gastrodermus. This is a genus that was published in the 1800s, so that genus name has now been reinstated for lineage 4 and 5 fish. Here are some of them. I'm sure you'll recognize them. Lineage 7 is Osteogaster. Again, species you would recognize, your bronze and albino Corys are Osteogaster, and also the laser ones, like CW10. Here are a couple. And now all of lineage 8 becomes Brochis. So instead of thinking of your Brochis splendens and Brochis multiradiatus, the hognose Brochis, now there are a whole heap of other species in Brochis. Let's have a look. Lineage 6 and 9 are now Hoplisoma. So that's basically bulk of our Corydoras species. Heck no. But why? You gotta be kidding me. Nope. What the? Seriously? This new revision just allows us to understand the fish more, and we can actually compare the different species much better. What this will allow in day-to-day in our fish tanks and in our fish room, for example, I do often put fish from two different lineages in the same tank, assuming that they are not going to interbreed because they are separate lineages and come from the separate, if you like, arms of the, if you like, relationship of different species, and they're sort of less likely to interbreed. With this new revision, there's been more clarity of those divisions within the group. So what that means for me, I will now go through all my tanks, and those tanks that have two species of Corydoras in it, I will make sure that the fish in there are as unrelated and as from different groups as possible. So what this study does is it puts lineages 4 and 5 and 6 and 9 together. So now, for example, I'm just going to make sure that I do not have any lineages 4 and 5 or 6 and 9 are in the same tank, whereas before this study was published, I would have considered those as separate enough that I would have been fine keeping them in the same tank, and if they were to breed, I would not have worried too much about them interbreeding. But now that this study have grouped them together, I will be a little bit more cautious in my tanks. So what this means for aquarium store owners, and I have quite a few friends who do own aquarium stores, what changes for you is basically up to you. If you would like to change the names on your tanks, you should. If you do not really want to, you don't have to as well. But more and more what's happening is the Corydoras name is becoming like a generic name for that group. Like, for example, when you guys are selling cichlids in your shops, you're not too worried about what genus name each individual fish has. You go, okay, this is our cichlid rack and this is cichlid A, B, C. When you're selling these fish now, the Corydoras group, it doesn't really matter too much for you if the genus name changed from Corydoras to Hoplisoma, for example. You can put that name on your tank if you want, but you don't really have to. So I don't think it is too big a deal, because a few of my shop owner friends were like, oh, what are we going to do now? And it depends on your type of shop. You might want to have that on there, or you go, okay, this is our Cory area and these are the different species we have, so nothing much changes for you. It will only affect you if you let it affect you, really. So for me, it's not too big of an issue, but I don't have an aquarium store. For the wholesalers, etc., it will take ages for the new names to filter through. And from an Australian perspective, actually, there is a slight issue, because in our allowable import list, Corydoras genus, the whole genus, is on the allowable import list. So Corydoras anything can be imported, even Corydoras C numbers, CW numbers, because the genus name is there. Once the genus name changes, someone actually needs to go ahead and put in an application for the individual fish. For example, the common fish, the bronze catfish, the albino catfish, the peppered catfish that get imported a ton of, now can Can they come in as Corydoras? Well, they will for a long time until these names might, make an effect into the import. But the thing that changed in the Australian import regulations, whereas in the past you could put a whole genus and let that, hopefully pass through, then all species in that genus could be imported. Now the rules have changed. Each individual species there needs to be an application separately, because, for example, for Hoplisoma, if someone put in an application to include the whole genus Hoplisoma into the Australian import list, even if one of the species within Hoplisoma is endangered and for whatever reason their trade is restricted and stuff, they will not allow all of Hoplisoma. So because of that, individual species need to be applied and put on the Australian allowable import list. So someone needs to fill out forms and make an application for Hoplisoma panda to be included in the import list. Someone needs to put a application in for Hoplisoma stirbi, so that might have an effect for us, but that will happen a bit down the track, I believe, because even scientifically what happens is the new name changes are a proposal, a suggestion. So what now the scientific community does in the next few months, half a year or whatever, any objections or rebuttals or any other points of view will also get published, and the scientific community will basically discuss what has merit and what is sort of, the interpretation of the data is a bit stretched and stuff. But in this instance, I do not expect a challenge from anyone. The study reads quite well, but I enjoy reading scientific papers. I'm weird. But even within this scientific community, that will take a little while, but for it effect on the hobby overall will be negligible. Again, for Australia, there'll be a slight import issue in the future, potentially, or not, but we'll see when that happens. Thank you for watching. So this has been another video by Callichthyidae Fisher. Catch you guys later. And I will always call you Corydoras, yeah. And I will always call you Corydoras.